Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Hey, we're back, and this is the final day of the top lead sources ranked from the worst to the first. And this is the final day. This is the show you've been waiting for. This is the podcast we've been looking forward to presenting to you. Now, what hopefully you've learned over the last few days is the fact that we are proponents of all sources and all forms of lead generation, but we give preference to the sources and forms of lead generation which will cost you the least amount of money, will put you in the position to help as many people in the shortest period of time, thus creating the most revenue for you. Hopefully that's something that you are also in alignment with. So, and we were also sprinkling in some information about what required skill and what didn't require skill. So what you're going to learn on today's podcast is that the things that we're going to expose to you today, the last 6 points, are the things that are the most effective, cost you the least amount of money, put the most of money in your pocket in the shortest period of time, but also do require skill. You have to learn to be a proactive lead generator, not just simply waiting around for the lead to show up and hopefully land on your plate as something that's easily closable. So keep that in mind. We do know that what we're about to expose you to does require more skill, but you can do it.
That's right. You can do it. We did it. We did it for reals, and you can do it, and all of our coaches did it. So this is the podcast where we're showing you where the money is. All right, number 6, for rent by owners. Many of you know about for sale by owners, but what about for rent by owners? These are small investors with single family or small multi-family homes like doubles or quads. If they don't rent right away, would they consider selling? I know sometimes I have those thoughts if they don't rent right away. It's a simple script. It's a business script. And they're advertising their phone numbers. You guys all like to complain, I can't find any phone numbers. Not so with for rent by owners. Phone numbers right there. Again, it's a business conversation. Most of the time it gets down to what do you think the home is worth. There's a free CMA offer as part of the script for the for rent by owners that we teach in Premier Coaching. This is very inexpensive, highly effective when done consistently. Again, it's a business conversation. You don't have a lot of the same objections that you do when you're talking to somebody who's maybe downsizing out of their family home. They're not really all that motivated to do anything right now. This is a small to medium size investor.
Well, but that's important. So a lot of these folks are what we call involuntary landlords. They didn't, if you see someone with like fewer than 5 rentals, the fewer the better, because it's going to be a real good indication that they aren't really into being landlords, and they probably love to sell the property if they knew it was worth. And how many folks out there who had maybe a property that they inherited from their Aunt Bob or Uncle Bob a long time ago? Well, I can't judge. It could be aunt or uncle nowadays. Who knows,
You never
right?
know.
Yeah, but so the point of it is what if they inherited this property? They've had it as a rental forever. They don't even know what the rent should be. They don't even know what it's worth. You guys getting the point? But Julie, we should do a slightly enhanced version of this too. Mm-hmm. It's going to be with regards to the not just a for rent by owners, but the vacation rental. So talk about that.
Yeah, that's right. And actually that should be its own. This is
fine.
0.6.5. Okay. So vacation rental by owners, these are pretty easy because you have your online resources. You've got vrbo.com, homeaway.com. You can search by zip code. It'll show you a map. You can click on their reservation dates and see, maybe here's one that hardly ever rents for it, ever. Are they still wanting to be invested in that? Are they making any money? Is it what they thought they were going to get out of it? Their phone number is there. It says contact the owner. You can email the owner.
A lot of people bought VRBO type properties. You guys remember when it was real trendy about 4 years ago? Everyone was going to retire off having a bunch of VRBOs.
COVID purchases.
Well, it turned out a lot of people were listening to that sort of trend in real estate. And now there seems to be, in many markets, too many VRBOs, and it's driven the rents down, and it's made it so those properties are no longer viable. And I'm going to give you a slight enhancement to this point too. If you have property management companies, I know some of them will list and help buyers buy and do property management, but you'll be surprised how many just want to do straight up property management and a referral out all their listing leads. So you got to be thinking for rent by owners. This isn't just the direct owner. It could be a property manager. It could be sources like that. but you're not going to know unless you actually pick up the phone and start making the calls. And you could hook up with a couple of these property management companies. We've had coaching clients that do this, where again, they don't want to do anything other than manage property, because when you get your property management portfolio up to say like 200 properties per month, or per total, 200 to 300, somewhere in there, that's a lot of work. That's a full-time job.
It's a specialty too.
It's a specialty, but you're charging usually 5% up to sometimes 10% per month of the gross rents that are collected. And maybe you don't want to screw around with basically dealing with the listing agent at that point. Some of those property management companies, by the way, a lot of times the only exit plan is to sell the property management company, and you, when doing the work to try to find out what those property management companies are doing with their listing leads, you might discover that they're actually thinking about selling their property management company, and that could be a great way for you then to buy that property management company or partner with them. Keep your mind open to what I'm saying. And then potentially, again, this is what our coaching clients do, that list of the properties that they're managing as part of the property management company, you could start calling them and you could find out that, hey, guess what? Every single year, 20 or 30 of those people want to put their homes for sale. We've had droves of coaching clients that have done exactly what I just said. They may have started building a property management business. We taught them how to be listing agents. And now what they do is they'll replace the property management clients they have every year when they list, some of those people decide to be sellers. Expand your thinking. The opportunity is everywhere. Julie, point number 5.
Well, you can see they're getting more skilled, more complicated, but also a lot more exciting, because one thing leads to the next. You have a lot more opportunity, don't you? So number 5, 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com. Write that down. It's the numbers 1-800-1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com. Now, we've done dedicated podcasts on 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE. There's a lot that you can get from the website as well. It's best used with listings to generate an abundance of both buyer and seller leads. But that's not the only way to use 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE. That's just our favorite way.
Let's talk about how it works. So 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com is a flat fee. I think it's $30 or $35 a month. And so let's say, for example, you do have a listing lead. And this is something, again, go to 800-HOME-HOTLINE.com and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's the number 1-800, 1 as in 800, then the word homehotline.com. And of course, the link is in our notes. If you're a Harris Real Estate Daily subscriber, you can just click the link. So what happens is you have a for sale sign. On the top of the sign, it says, for free 24-hour record info on this house, call, and then you're going to have your unique toll-free number. So every subscriber to 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com has their own toll-free number. So let's just say yours is 800-555-1212. Then each listing is going to have its own dedicated extension. So someone's parked in front of your listing, parked in front of your sign, they're wanting free 24-hour recorded information on the house, they're going to call the 800 number. That's where the magic happens. Now, I'm going to explain to you, because a lot of you are thinking, why won't they just go online? And I'll explain it to you in a second why more people are going to want to call, and why they're going to call a toll-free number, an 800 number, versus essentially calling you direct. Okay? So they're going to call the number, they're going to listen to a little brief recording on the house that you've left, and then you're going to get texted with their phone number, and you cannot block it. So if someone's calling you from a cell phone number, you're going to get their cell phone number. If they're calling you from, it's a neighbor calling and checking on the price of the new listing, you're going to know who it is. It's going to give you their address information, the whole thing. So that means you're going to be getting texts from 800-HOME-HOTLINE giving you the complete details on the people that are calling the 800-HOME-HOTLINE.com sign writer on your sign. Trust me when I tell you those are killer leads. Those are the very definition of the best leads you can get, especially when it comes to the sellers, because what you'll discover is when you put the 800-HOME-HOTLINE.com sign writer on your sign on a new listing in a neighborhood, the first people to call for usually the first week are going to be the neighbors checking on the price, many of whom are thinking about selling their homes themselves. Now, if you don't have listings yourself, you can put a 800-HOME-HOTLINE.com sign writer with permission on other listing agents' signs, or just get a standalone sign and put it in the yard. Now, why would someone rather call 800-HOME-HOTLINE than call you directly? Because they're busy. Because they just want the information. They want to know bedrooms, baths, and price. They don't want to have to go to a website because they're already there in front of the sign.
And it might be 11 o'clock at night, they're driving home from work. They're not going to call your office. They're not going to go through your phone tree and figure out your voicemail. They want what the sign says, free 24-hour recorded info.
And by the way, this is a killer listing tool as well. So go to 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com and watch the video that's on the website, and it'll kind of explain to you in more detail what I just attempted to on this podcast. but that is definitely a very, very effective. I can literally remember to this day, and Julie and I haven't sold real estate in ages, but the leads that we got from 800 Home Hotline were absolutely some of the most profitable transactions we ever did, because the people that are calling about listing information that's only available from us, them calling the 800homehotline.com sign are going to be serious buyers, or they're going to be serious neighbors thinking about selling. And we pick up all kinds of absolutely especially on our more expensive listings, interestingly enough, because those would be the doctors that work until it's late at night. Those would be the reload people that are,
in town for the weekend, have to make a decision. I mean, I get chills when I think about how much money we made from that. And it was a lead source that was also, I would say, in terms of the scale of lead sources, it was easier, more fun, because they were more qualified, more targeted, more serious, and more immediate.
Because when you call them back, here's the script. And I haven't said this to a real customer in forever, but I remember it like the back of my hand. So phone would ring, or rather you call them back because you just got the text, and you call them back and say, "Hi, this is Tim Harris with ABC Realty. When someone calls our 800 number, we like to give them a quick call back to see if they have any questions about the home they called about." And here's what you'd hear every single time. They'd go like, they wouldn't believe it's a real human. They wouldn't believe it was the actual agent on the sign that was calling them back. They were blown away. And you'd hear a pause. They'd say like, "Is this a real person?" They wouldn't believe that someone's actually making that level of effort. Now, where this turned to gold was when it was a prospective seller, or it was a soon-to-be expired seller in a neighborhood, and they were calling about the new listing to find out the price. And here the listing agent was calling them back urgently, to follow up on it as if they were a potential buyer. And that soon-to-be expired seller can't even get their existing listing agent to call them back. You guys get the point?
There's so many benefits from 800 Home Hotline.
Furiously fast lead follow-up is the key to life. And furiously fast lead follow-up is always going to be what makes 800homehotline.com work. But don't think that the whole point is just to generate leads and put them into a drip system.
No.
The whole point is to call people back and having meaningful conversations using our conversation outlines, aka scripts.
Okay, now let's put 1-800 Home Hotline quickly through our filters. Lots of money?
Yes.
No, make lots of money, yes.
Yes.
Does it cost you a lot of money?
No.
Practically free, $37 a month, okay? Does it take a high level of skill? Well, it does take some skill, and we teach the scripts, but you just demonstrated with your impromptu role play that, the reason that it stuck with you is because you used it so many times.
I'm going to finish my script, okay? Yeah. So then let's say it's a neighbor, and they'll say, "Well, I'm just, this is Tim Harris.
What's the price?
This is Tim Harris with ABC Realty. As a courtesy, when people call our 800 number, we like to give them a quick call back to see if they have any questions about the home they called about." And they'll say, "Well, I'm just interested in the price." And then this is what you say. Listen to what I'm about to tell you, listeners, because this is the magic. You're going to say this: "Well, let me check on that property to make sure there's no contracts on it, and make sure that I got all the information right. Oh, by the way, which house in the neighborhood are you thinking about selling?" You say that right at the top when you call them back, because then you'll quickly discover what I already told you, that a lot of the first calls you get into 800 Home Hotline when you put the sign in the yard are going to be the neighbors checking on the price. I promise you, the surge in business you'll experience from this one idea will change your real estate business forever, as long as you do it at the highest level. So go to 1-800homehotline.com. Obviously, we could do an entire podcast on this one topic because we're so passionate about it, but check it out yourself. Julie, point number 4.
Okay, moving on up the list, open houses. Following our proven open house system, which includes scripts, etc., and choosing the right homes to hold open, this is an amazing and predictable source of business. Refer to our many podcasts, of course it's in Premier Coaching, about how to monetize open houses. Never say again, "I'm going to go sit an open house." It makes me crazy.
Well, we have a whole open house system that's in Premier Coaching.
Yep.
And it gives you checklists, it gives you systems, all the things. And when you do, really what an open house is, it's like a grand opening. And if you do it correctly, even in I'd say a neighborhood that doesn't have that much activity, you're going to generate, if nothing else, a lot of interested neighbors, sellers, who might also be thinking about selling. Remember, an open house rarely sells the house that's being held open. What an open house is an opportunity for you to do, provided you're not sitting in the open house, is actually get to have high-level conversations with really what usually are the best buyers, those looking at open houses on Sundays, and certainly prospective sellers. But you got to follow our system. It's included in Premier Coaching, so just go to premiercoaching.com or text the word Premier to 47372.
That's right. It's highly effective when done right. It's very inexpensive, both in terms of time and money. And with regards to the skill required, every time you do it, when you follow our scripts and the coaching, you're going to get better and better and more effective very quickly. And I remember some of our very first transactions, probably, if we're being honest, probably a large percentage of our first 25 deals came from open houses.
Well, let's drill down, right? So our first year in business, when Julie and I were in our early 20s, we sold over 100 homes our first year in real estate. From what I understand, it's never been done since, but I know it was never done before. Some of you might remember us from that because it was a big deal in real estate when we did that. So I would say, Julie, that at least of those 100 sides, at least 50 came from open houses.
Probably.
Because we actually took a listing of our neighbor across the street, Carl.
Yeah, friends with to this day.
And we would hold that thing open. Yep, and we'd hold that thing open like you could not believe. And we got so many different, so much activity off that. And we would go, obviously from that, and it goes into our next points, is we would, if there was a FSBO that popped up, we would certainly go and knock on the FSBO's door and let him know what was going on at that listing. We used that listing, that one little dinky house, as a springboard to sell over 100 homes. That's how it worked.
Yes, I remember distinctly, because we used whiteboards back then too, looking at a whiteboard, and that when we got our open houses really systematized, and we were combining that with door knocking and going after for sale by owners in the same neighborhood, expired.
And we had no center of influence in past clients.
None.
We were brand new.
And we looked like we were 12.
Yeah, Julie and I were right out of college. I had a car cleaning and detailing business, and Julie actually worked at a year-round Christmas store.
I was an elf.
So there was no reason why Tim and Julie Harris should have sold over 100 houses their first year in real estate.
No, but I remember distinctly looking at our whiteboards. I remember the first time we had more than 20 pendings at once. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of learning.
Our whole goal, our first year in real estate, was to pay off our student loans. That was it.
Yep.
From college.
We did it.
Yep.
Okay, so that all stemmed from the open house conversation. Okay, number 3. Past clients and sphere of influence. Even if you are new or newer and you don't have that many past clients, you do have a center of influence, your database. And many of you listening have a pretty big database, especially if you've been at it for a while. So in order for this to work, you have to have regular communication that's systematized. At least 5 contacts per day using the Ford script we teach you in Premier Coaching. Past client appreciation parties and events, we do that in Premier Coaching. We have a 12-month event calendar that we teach you. We've talked about that on podcasts as well. Pop-bys to your top 20 to 30 past clients for the holidays. Systematic expansion of your sphere. So this by itself has many working parts, but should be high on your list of effectiveness. It's inexpensive money-wise, but it will take more time and effort than you think. Foundational source or spoke of business. All of you should have this as a foundational spoke. Why? Because the better you are at this, the more easy or organic deals you're going to have. Remember what you've been talking about this entire week. When somebody decides to sell their home, or maybe to have an agent help them buy a home, the first thing they ask themselves, who do I already know? Who sold me the house before? Who do I know? Who keeps on calling me, telling me what my house is probably worth? Who do I already know? Probably the decision is made there. But if not, maybe their previous agent is out of business or it didn't go well. Who do I know? I'm going to ask for a trusted friend or advisor. Maybe my neighbor had a great agent experience. Be the one that they already know. That's your past client, your center of influence.
And don't forget the punchline. And only, it's like 8% or 6%. These studies have been done for decades.
Yep.
Very few people, less than 10%, let's just agree to settle there, actually will then decide who they're going to hire based on an ad and based on media, based on branding, based on marketing, based on anything. So most people are taken out of the market because they're using someone they already know, love, and trust to be the real estate agent.
Their center of influence.
Or they're using, exactly, or they're getting a referral from a trusted friend or advisor. Now I want you to pay attention here. That point and the previous point, open houses, you're not actually speaking with people who've self-identified, who have their hands in the air saying, yes, I want to sell my house, right? Now you could argue that the notice or that the probate, those are potential must-sell sellers. But for the most part, the most motivated sellers, the best quality leads are the ones that are telling you that they want to sell their homes. The ones that have their hands in their air and saying, yes, I want to sell my house. They've already identified themselves as being a AAA, ready to go, rock star level listing opportunity. Now, we're focusing on sellers here because from one listing, you generally will end up selling 7 houses. And if you think there's a lack of buyer leads, take one listing and you'll have so many buyer leads you won't know what to do with it, especially if you use 800homehotline.com. So what you should be focusing all your best energies every single day of your professional real estate life is focusing on becoming a powerful listing agent. So if you want to list houses, what do you want to do? Go run a bunch of Facebook ads? No. If you want to list houses, what do you want to do? Go out and do a branding campaign? No. You want to call the people who actually have already said, I want to sell my house. Number 2, Julie.
For sale by owners, lovingly referred to by us and our coaches as unrepresented sellers, at least unrepresented for now.
But Julie, I don't want to work them. Everybody calls it for sale by owners. That's not true.
Not true.
What they'll do is they do direct mail. Very few agents, especially ones that have been in the business for 10 years or less, have actually taken the time to develop the skill set to make phone calls, actually to have meaningful conversations, because everyone has been leaning you guys towards marketing and branding and advertising. You guys have been sold down the river on all these false beliefs about how to generate leads consistently, where the reality of it is, and the wonderful fact is that leads are all around you, with point number 2 being for sale by owners. They already have identified themselves as wanting to sell their homes. They have help wanted signs in their yard. On their help wanted signs, there's phone numbers. My
love of God. They have market tested the price. They can be the most loyal clients ever because they've actually tried and not succeeded at what you do for a living. Many will also buy with you once their home is sold. It can be not just one transaction, but 2, maybe even more. Remember, you're going to take the listing, you're going to do an open house, you're going to do all of the things. They are super inexpensive. You might have a total of $0 invested.
She means the leads.
The leads. You're not buying leads. There's no referral fee.
So you can get leads. Julie, what's our preferred lead source for FSBOs? Is it
RedX.
RedX? Okay. So here's, again, I think this is another $250 discount thing.
Yep.
Is it? Oh, yeah, I got it right. So text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372. Text the word RED to 47372. And RedX will actually source the for sale by owner leads for you, and they'll also do expired leads. What does this mean? They're going to go through digitally. They're going to find, because FSBOs will list their homes a whole bunch of different websites, and sometimes, believe it or not, even the local paper. And so what RedX will do is they'll find the addresses and the phone numbers, and then they put it all together so you don't have to do it. Some of you are going to say, I'm not going to pay them. I'm just going to hire a VA to do it. Why? Stop wasting time trying to create your own system. Use a system that works. So text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372, and then they'll start sending you the newest for sale by owner leads. Use our scripts, use our pre-listing pack, use our pre-qualification system, use our listing presentation, the whole thing, and then you can start building a listing inventory. For one for sale by owner that you list, that's going to generally equal 7 other transactions. In your marketplace, what's your average commission? $10,000, $15,000? From you doing this one point, how much money will you make? Over 100 grand.
It's almost absurd, isn't it? Okay, so for sale by owners are number 2. Number 1, of course, is expired listings. And I think this is both your and my favorite.
Well,
and we'll talk about why.
Well, okay, so if you and I were to get back in the real estate business.
Directly to expired.
It would 100%. And if we only had to do 2 things, if we were only allowed to do 2 things, it would be expireds and it would be centers of influence and past clients.
I would agree. I would kind of lump expireds and FSBOs together because the scripts are pretty similar.
Kind of same.
And they have similar tendencies.
Well,
they're self-identified.
But a lot of FSBOs are actually expireds too.
That's true. They're cousins, right?
So you're going to find a lot of these for sale by owners. Do a little homework on them before you call them. Drop their address into Google and see when they were last listed, or MLS, and then you'll discover a lot of the for sale by owners are actually expires. They didn't necessarily expire yesterday. They may have expired 6 months or 12 months ago. And who did they list with before they expired? The agent that it was there that they knew, but they don't know any other agents, and that's literally what they're going to tell you. For sale by owners will tell you the same thing. The for sale by owners they'll be the ones that sometimes will say, I'm trying to sell it myself because I didn't know another real estate agent, because if they were expired, or I didn't know an agent. They will literally tell you that they just didn't know somebody. That's the reason they decided to FSBO it. They weren't really serious. Mr. Seller, how long have you given this property? How long have you given yourself to sell this property yourself? Well, I've given myself 90 days. Okay, great. And you now know their motivation. Use our scripts and you'll discover that when you follow our system, these relationships, some of you have built up so much psychological issues with going after the most motivated sellers. But if I tell you to create some ridiculous Facebook campaign with a 14,000 layer funnel, you'll be, all right, I'm all in. Why?
Why?
Honestly, why? Go after the person who has their name, their sign in the yard with their phone number, even their damn price is on the sign probably. And you know they're going to be moving up to something else. Call them.
Call them. Pick up the phone. Talk into it. The other thing that I love about for sale by owners and expireds, and this is for everybody, but especially those of you who want to raise your average sale price, maybe you want to move into some different areas, you can curate your listing inventory. You can decide, as we did when we went to New Albany Country Club, this is an area that I want to have listings in. This is a sale price that I want to have listings in.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what Julie and I did, we started out, and this was in the 90s, and our average sale price after a year, about 18 months, 24 months, was what the average was in Columbus, Ohio, which was about 200 grand.
Yep.
And now the average sale price in Columbus is about 450 or something, probably.
Yeah.
Well, so this New Albany Country Club area, which was clear across town, had an average sale price of $1 million.
And tons of new construction.
And tons of new construction. It was, and the market was starting to turn. It was starting, the days when the market was extending. How resale especially was becoming harder to sell. A market that was perfect for a new generation of agents to go in there and start eating let's just be honest, more complacent agents' lunch. So this is what we did. It was the end of, I forget what year, you and I started going out and walking in the community, getting to know the streets. It was a lot of fun.
We didn't live there yet.
And we did, look, these people were all vastly wealthier than we were. They all went to really nice schools. They had all these social connections. They went to Paris in the summer. I mean, we didn't even know where Paris was on a map. I'm only sort of kidding, okay? But we went out there and we became comfortable in the neighborhood. We looked how they dressed. We
went to new construction. We got to know some builders.
Right. So we very quickly decided this was where we wanted to be. Selling real estate, but also we wanted to live in this community. It was not just a step up for us. It was like 1,000 step ups. Prior to us actually going out there for the first time, which was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, remember, I was cleaning cars and Julie was a full-time elf. Okay, so now being in real estate for 4 or 5 years, now we're basically deciding that we just want to start selling real estate in one of the most exclusive areas in Central Ohio. So here's how we did it. We started hunting expired sellers. And oftentimes what we discovered was they expired not once, but sometimes 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you guys, since you've listened to us for 5 days this week, we're going to tell you the biggest secret, the absolute 100% biggest hack to becoming a successful listing agent. Something that, frankly, normally we would never be willing to say this on a live podcast because, frankly, we could be voted out of the secret listing agent club.
Yes, but you guys have earned it. You've stuck it out for 5 days.
You've earned it. Okay, so here it is. The key to being a successful listing agent, write this down. You won't hear this again, is have the listing when it sells. That's it.
That's it.
Have the listing when it sells. So hopefully you guys are seeing that's a joke. But it's the truth. So you can be the first listing agent, but you didn't get the price, condition, location, combination correct. It's going to expire on you. Then it's going to expire again. Then it might expire again. And that's what we would look for. We'd look for sellers that had already listed with everyone lists with Jane, she's the big deal listing agent. She failed to sell the house, and then they would go and list it with whoever Jane's chief competitor was. Okay, when he failed to sell the house, they were like, holy crap, we just listed with the 2 big name agents in this marketplace. They both failed. We might as well give Tim and Julie a try. And Julie and I had learned to sell hundreds of houses per year at that point, and we were good. And these other agents were only selling maybe a dozen houses per year. And they were, obviously not good. And so as a result of that, we were going in there and we listed a whole bunch of expireds. And we put them all to go active in like February and March of the following year. And I'll never forget it. The sign company, when we put in the sign order, thought it was a mistake. Mm-hmm. And these signs were like $400 each, by the way.
Big wooden
things. Gnarly signs. And he took 2 weeks to place all of our signs. And when all the signs were in the yard, and then you go to the MLS, it was just Tim and Julie Harris for sale everywhere. And we were the #1 listing agents in that marketplace because that little strategy I just told you. So that's what we did, and that's how we did it. And that was a really great lesson to us because what did we learn? Indeed, our skills from the lower sale prices were transferable to a market where we had no right to be successful, let alone as successful as we were. We learned that competing usually with the most expensive agents, or I'm sorry, the most expensive real estate with the agents earning the most money was usually the easiest type of agent to compete with, because they pretty much were getting all of their business from social connections.
Socially.
And never were that, I mean, I don't mean to say they weren't skilled, but they certainly weren't that skilled in the sense that they didn't have to try that hard, because the average
They weren't
commission
used to competing.
they didn't have to compete for
Yeah,
the most
that's what I'm
part.
saying.
They get all their business because they both went to the same elite boarding school in, Switzerland or whatever.
Yep.
And that was, they never had to learn what Julie and I had to learn. A lot of you guys are just like Julie and I, and you're looking for, the motivation to go up market. You're looking for the motivation to take your business to the next level. We've just told you our opinion of what the top 32 from the worst to the best lead generators are. And hopefully you're going to take it seriously. Hopefully you're going to be incredibly motivated, because no matter how old you are, no matter what the interest rates are, who the president is, what your education level is, hopefully you've been listening to Julie and I for the last week, or maybe you've been listening to us for the last thousands and thousands of podcasts, and you finally come to the conclusion that if those two dummies can do it, I can do it too.
They can do it, I can do it. Now, you told the story of New Albany, and I 100% agree, lived it with you. Our entry and to a large part success there was on the backbone of expired hunting. Now, in addition to that, because I want to make this as a conclusion to this week's discussion about worst to first in lead generation, we also learned to combine the most effective spokes. So we might have taken the listing because we got it as an expired, but we also generated business from the open house system we applied to the expired. We used 800 Home Hotline on the sign to generate more leads while we had the listing. And we did a great job on the listing so we get repeat and referral, all the while getting to know the new construction in the area and learning how to work relocation. Those were our core spokes. Those are not the only spokes, but when you get them working in conjunction, you're going to not just break into a community, but you're going to stay there and you're going to start to self-generate, which also costs you nothing.
Your problem will be when you get to that level, and I know this sounds kind of funny, but it's true, is you might become complacent. Bored, seriously, because the business and the money is so easy and you're used to struggling. You're used to things being hard. And I know psychologically, we've had a lot of coaching clients. I mean, I remember when Julie and I struggled with it, where we were all of a sudden went from, essentially being freshly married poor kids. I mean, we were 20 and 21 when we got married. We didn't start selling real estate until a few years after that. We did our first real estate transaction when I was 23 and Julie was 22, okay? So when we did that, trust me, we were struggling all the time. We had ramen noodles for the first couple of years we were married. Some of you guys can totally relate.
Our suits were consignment.
Exactly. We got them from thrift shops. That's, And so what eventually happened was as things got easier and we started making more money because we were doing all these things consistently, and we went from having no listings within like maybe 3 years, we're consistently carrying 20 to 30 listings at all times. And we just followed the same system that we've been preaching and teaching you guys to use for decades, and obviously enhancing it so it's in tune with, essentially modern technologies and techniques and whatnot. But it definitely works. It actually, what we're teaching you guys now works more now than even it did then, because here's why. Because so few agents nowadays are doing the real work of real estate because they're doing all the passive digital stuff. And so if you're willing to have conversations, and we keep on saying in real life because it's important, and you're not going to overly invest in all the digital and the passive lead generation stuff, you will have an unfair advantage in the marketplace because so few agents even have a clue that doing business this way even exists. And they'll try to shit on it too. They'll say, well, that's old school, or nobody calls expireds anymore. Nobody calls FSBOs anymore. Did you see my YouTube campaign and how I'm going to blah, 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 blah? Look, ask yourself this simple question. If you have to do 5 deals in the next 90 days, and they have to all be sellers, so you have to take 5 listings in the next 90 days, what are you going to do? Are you going to do our second point, which is call for sale by owners, or our first point, expireds? Or are you going to go back and are you going to do a Facebook campaign? Or are you going to do something that's going to be passive, hoping and praying that somebody calls you? Or are you going to use your brain and actually call the people who have their hands in their air right now saying, yes, I want to sell my house? Hey, you decide.
It's your choice.
It's
That's
your
why
choice.
we did this whole week.
It's your choice. I mean, hopefully you're going to listen to us. And look, how many of the things that we told you guys how to do, don't cost you any money. We have no agendas. We want you to join Premier Coaching for sure. But other than that, we've just told you how to do all these things, and we've done the work for you. You now know what to do. You know the things that are going to put the most money in your pocket, the most net money in your pocket, the quickest, with the least amount of hassle, with the fewest, probability of breakage. The simplest things to implement, but the things that work the best, to make the most money in the shortest period of time, do require the most skill. But haven't you waited long enough to develop the skill and become the best version of yourself, a real estate practitioner? You have.
You have. The issue, as you were talking, I was thinking about many conversations with the coaches and coaching clients. The issue for some of you listening is that you don't realize that the business can be predictable and duplicatable, that you can generate really good closable quality leads because you've been spending so much of your time at the bottom of the list that we started presenting on Monday and Tuesday. Your belief has become that the business is hard, that buyers are liars, and leads are scarce and hard to come by, and I have to pay so much for the leads.
Exactly.
And it's so hard, and I'm never going to make any money. And then I get a tax bill, and I've made it even less money. That's what some of you have decided, somewhat, some of your fault, some not your fault, because that's the life you've lived. You haven't been working on the right lead sources, so your impression of how it is to be in real estate is tainted by going after things that are not that productive, that cost you too much time, cost you too much money, cost you too much psychologically and emotionally and mentally and even physically. It's maybe not you, maybe it's the lead sources that you've been dabbling in.
Yeah, I cannot end the podcast any better than that. So here's your homework for today's podcast. Obviously, go to Premier Coaching. Now is the time, if you're not, and if you're involved in Premier Coaching, re-engage. Make sure you're going to your daily Premier Coaching session with our Harris certified coaches. Do that urgently. It's what all of you need. Guys, listen, this is the best time. I think all of you will agree, and I'm not being political, but this is the best time to be in real estate. By all measures, the home sales are increasing. By all measures, the economy is going to, all the things. The wind is finally at your back. Now make the most of it. All of these things weren't designed to make you feel optimistic or improve your mindset, but I bet you after listening to us for the past 5 days, you're feeling more optimistic because you're realizing your best days are still ahead of you in the real estate industry. Thank you for keeping us as part of your life. We certainly appreciate, and frankly, we're honored to be part of yours. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.